The following program is sponsored by John Chachis Insurance, your local farmer's insurance agent located at 800 Avenue G in Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Ely TV, Channel 3-2 in Ely, Nevada. Ely Municipal Utility Board meeting, June 12, 2013.
2013 meeting of the Ely Municipal Utility Board to order. Roll call, please.
Chairman Norcross.
Here.
Member LaClary.
Here.
Member Robinson is absent. Councilman Burbidge.
Present.
City Clerk Allworth.
Here.
City Attorney Briggs.
Here.
City Treasurer Trask. Here. City Engineer Albert.
Here.
City Water Sewer Supervisor Jenkins.
Here.
Assistant City Landfill Supervisor Lawrence.
Here.
That's all, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. This time we'll have public comment. Any public comment? Good morning, Marty.
Good morning, gentlemen. Comments are essentially the same as they were at the last meeting that we had. I had concerns about the hydrant use language. I think it should be limited to firefighting and department operation and maintenance. Just remove the rest of that. That takes out any ambiguity. And perhaps for the purpose of this document, maybe we should define department. I presume that means the board. Perhaps you could address those concerns.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Morning, George.
How are you, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Mr. Chairman, in reading the Sheriff's Water Report, I believe it was dated May 2nd, 2013, the city filed a complaint regarding theft of city utilities. I want to know who filed the complaint, who was the person or entity that was cited. When did the board address the issue? What was the outcome? Was this addressed by the city council? I don't miss too many meetings and I didn't hear or see anything being done. Mr. Chairman, the county is about to break ground on the construction of a new pool on property which belongs to the school district. They have yet to apply for a building permit and have yet to apply for a will serve for water and sewer service. I believe it would be illegal for them to tap into the high school connections. I'm not sure what they plan on doing. It appears you're selectively enforcing the city regulations. I've brought it up more than once. They need to be aware that they have to pay those fees prior to construction. If they don't, there's no need for you people. The city's supposedly in a financial bind. Why aren't you collecting the monies? Mr. Chairman, yet to date, you have yet to date to address as to why you're charging the White River Museum residential rates and charging me commercial rates for my home when I'm not in business. I'm again requesting your response in writing or the basis for your refusal. Federal law clearly states the city must not discriminate in any federally funded or assisted public utility. Also, I'm again requesting a copy of State Senator P. Govichia's landfill billing, which he has stated at a county commission meeting was approximately $500 or more without penalties or interest. I believe we're selectively enforcing law here. The city needs to hire an accountant as required by Ely City Code 16B-6C. That's probably the biggest reason you have 500 or more delinquent accounts. The board needs to comply with city ordinance and you must resign. It isn't that you don't know about it. You have to stop the rampant discrimination. Mr. Chairman, has the county paid for the water use at the golf course? And has the city collected any monies as addressed by the memo dated April 26, 2012 from Jeanette Trask to Mr. Allworth and then in turn to you folks? Water value was estimated at $93,058. Where's that money, Mr. Chairman? How long do we have to wait for some kind of answer? Mr. Chairman, this is a new month and I would like to know if you have the most recent updated list of home occupation special use permits. In reviewing the older list, I still do not see City Clerk Jim Allworth and his business Scottwater listed. Does the city exempt city employees from business license and other fees? If so, is it a written policy? When was it put on the agenda? Who approved it? I would like a copy if it exists. The request is several years old and it needs to be addressed. The open meeting law allows a verbal request. You may look into that if you would. Mr. Chairman, the meetings need to be rescheduled back to Monday or Tuesday as they've been for decades. You're stacking your meetings and you're meeting the public civility to attend all meetings. Did I get some answers?
Any other public comment at this time? If not, we'll move on to item 3, items for discussion, possible action of the utility board, consent agenda. These items may be approved in one motion by the board as its first action of business under for discussion, possible action items. Approval of the consent agenda approves each of these items. Board members may remove any item from the consent agenda by notifying the board chair. At this time, is there a motion to move to approve the consent agenda items 3A1 minutes and 3A2 payment of bills?
I so move, Mr. Chairman, exclude any invoices for the party.
Okay, that motion is for the minutes and the payment of bills.
Correct.
And I'll second that motion with any bills or payment of bills or anything to Norcross service stations or sanitary staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to item number 1. New businesses under Robinson Nevada Mining Company representative. Discussion possible action. Update to the utility board on the Robinson Nevada development, root pit development, and water mitigation efforts within the city of Peters. Yes, hi.
Lisa Friedman from the Robinson Mine.
Thank
There really hasn't been much of a change in the mine plan as far as dewatering or where we're mining. Still mining in the Ruth pit and in the Kimbley pit. We're dewatering in Ruth pit. We are not dewatering in Kimbley pit yet. Still the ongoing permitting process. Gleason Creek we're still not adding any flow to Gleason Creek at the moment. The mill is using up the majority of that water that we've got. As far as water levels, it's my understanding that the utility board has asked more than once about the water levels of wells, both in the city of Ely and surrounding area. And I wanted to give you a quick update. We are working on putting together that information. We'd like to give you an interpretation as well as the straight well data. Reason being is you can look at water levels from wells and you may see a raise in one well and a drop in another well, and we'd like to provide you information on why those differences are occurring. Worth Campground, for example, the wells in that area, we have seen a drawdown in those wells. I think it was 150 feet. But we're not, that's South Block water. And because Ely is in a different hydrogeologic block, we're not expecting to see that same drawdown in Ely. So we're still working on that. We're working with Schlumberger and their hydrologists, their specialists, to get that information to you in an easy to understand format. In the meantime, if you do want just straight water level data, you can go to the Nevada, the Division of Water Resources website, and that information is available to the public. It's information that we collect and we report to them, and they make available.
And you don't give that information to the city council or this board? If you give it to the state, can you give it to the boards?
Sorry?
If you give that information to the state, can you give that information to both the city council and the utility board?
I don't see a problem with that. I'll look into maybe seeing if those reports can be extended to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
One other thing we've got going on is RW6P. And I did want to let you know that we are working on that well today. We noticed a decrease in the pumping capacity of that well. And so they're pulling the pump, they're checking it, they're making sure everything is still working, we don't have any developing problems. And RW7P is still up and running, supplying the city with water. And we did check with Ron to make sure that because it's been so hot, if they need additional water going to the city of Ely, that the wells in Ely will be usable for additional water. So,
Any other questions?
No, thank you for the update.
Yeah, the other thing I had, when I made that comment, is why should we have to go on the website to give providing that information to the state? Just provide it.
mm-hmm. And when we report it, and so I will talk to Nettie's going to generate those reports, and I'll double check and see if we can just extend it out, and it'd be easy to send it to you guys at the same time we're sending it to the state.
So you brought the water level down across at the group pit, approximately 160 feet.
Oh, that was closer to the war campground. That's the drawdown you've seen there.
Anything else, John? Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any public comment on that agenda item? Anybody from the public? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item number 2. Board members, City Engineer Albert, discussion, possible action, consideration to award bid for the wastewater treatment plant's group pump replacement. Good morning, BJ.
Good morning, how are you guys? We did receive some bids back yesterday was bid opening. We received 2 bids. One was from O'Flaherty Plumbing and Heating, and the other one was from Yerba Buena. They were an out-of-town company out of San Francisco. We recommend the low bid. Recommend that we award that to O'Flaherty Plumbing. They were the lowest, and they were responsible and responsive bidder. That bid was for $88,456. And then you guys also have in your packet I believe you have a breakdown of Yerba Buena's bid was $178,000. I'm not sure where their number came from. It doesn't seem to be responsive.
It says the engineering estimate was 160 done by the previous engineer. What was in his estimate that?
I don't know what was in his other estimate, but that was what was budgeted. Is that? Yes. So that was from budgeted from before. So.
BJ, on this, I guess you looked at and went over the bids pretty carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Has removal of existing screw pump, new screw pump, new handrail. What about the installation of the new one? Is that included?
Yes.
It's included in the price.
It's included, yes. The installation is included inside the new, the part of the new screw pump is the installation of that. And so this is be complete when this is done. You'll have a new pump up and running.
We have an obvious conflict of interest here. I believe it would this board would not be able to vote on this item. So I go to the city council tomorrow.
Okay.
With no recommendation.
Okay.
Thanks, BJ.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, do you have a copy of the items you were looking at?
Will you please step up? Thanks, George. Okay, now we'll move on to item number 3, member of Flaherty. Combat, discussion, possible action, consideration of a residential building and a commercial building belonging to Tom Bath. Morning, Tom.
Good morning, everybody. I have some comments here. Several items to discuss. These are copies of those. What that I just handed you was 2012. These are 2015. little background while I'm discussing was, in February, I got billed at the lumberyard for 166,000 gallons of water. And you see that one on the last one I gave you. So I thought, oh, do we have a leak? I don't know. Because it's normally about 9,000 gallons. So, we made it pretty well. I was down at the day that I saw it, the next day I saw the people coming to read the meter, and they were at the Bristol Home Apartments. So I waited until I came down the store and I said, you know, do we have a bad meter or something here? So they read it, and it was, they read the next one was a lot more, and I said, well, you know, we must have a problem here. So he called the supervisor, that's Carl, and Carl came down and said, I'll turn off the main and see if it's on your side or our side. And so I turned off the main and it was on our side. And so we called the plumber. The plumber came down on the 10th of March and shut it off. So the next morning, he said to me, he said, well, you know, we had to pump the water out of the hole to read the meter last month. And I'm thinking, well, you know, maybe we should have done something previous month, because if there was water in the hole, it seems to me that's a flag. So anyway, I didn't say anything. And so the next morning I get a call from Carl. He says, I'm up here where this meter is for the trees, and we've got a problem there. There must be a leak. I said, okay, be right up. Well, I didn't know what he was reading. He didn't tell me, and I didn't ask. So I said, well, let me look on the hill and I'll see. And I get up there in my drain box. Now, this is winter. This is when the plumber dug up the one at the lumberyard. The frost line was 5 feet. So, you know, we're talking about frozen ground. So I get up there and I look in the box, and I had about this size of a box and about this much water in it. And I thought, well, this must be it, you know. So I didn't think much about it. I came back and told him, well, I'll check into this. I must have a leak. Well, anyway, I found out that it was 1,700,000 gallons that's in there. And the thing, I thought, oh, gosh, it couldn't be that much. So I talked to them, and they were going to dig up the meter, which sits only 29 inches below the surface. And I didn't know that until I opened up the meter thing to see. And so, just as you probably know, the 1,700,000 gallons is more water than what's behind the courthouse. You've got a 1,000,000 gallon tank, and you got a 500,000 gallon tank. So it would have flooded downtown, especially with frozen ground. But anyway, so they said, well, we'll dig up that meter and see. And see, all the water I get, I have to pump up the hill with pumps. And I was having some troubles before, because there's a 2-inch meter there. My pumps are high power 2-inch. And if I turn those on, I have to get some air, because the water coming in doesn't come in fast enough for my pumps to pump it out. I didn't know what size meter they put in. It was voted on in city council in October 23rd, 2008, to put in an 8-inch meter. I was there. Somehow it went from 8-inch to 2-inch, and I didn't realize it. But anyway, so I said to Carl, I said, well, let me check. They were ready to dig it up. Well, you know, in the wintertime up there, I use zero. I'm not, what am I going to water? You don't water trees in the dead of winter. So the next bill I got was 41,000. So it's a lot better. And so I got to looking in and we checked up there on the hill line and the leaks. Well, then the next month it was 10,000, which was, well, I turned the pumps on, so I used 10,000. The next month it was 1,000 gallons. That's in your papers there. So I said to Carla, no point in taking them up. I went out and checked the meter, opened the thing up. I never opened it up. Find out it's 29 inches below. What happened is that sucker froze. And I don't know how that works. But the meter's working fine now. So the point being is, number one, there's a problem with the amount of water. Number two, am I the only one in the city that has a residential property that's on meter? And I think we'll probably find out. Maybe Glenn can tell us. Am I?
It's on my knowledge.
So I think that's something this board needs to look at. And so then the next thing I was going to ask you about was, you know, if you look at the bills, is there a policy on the capital improvement? You know, when it was done in the paper, I thought it was $5 and $10, and you know, it turns out it's like 40%. So on that 1,700,000 gallons, it's like $590 for the improvements. So that's a little rough. I don't know what your policy is, but if you look at back on one of those records, you'll see in August they charged you $10. This is on the hill, and then the next month it was, and thereafter it was 40%. So do we have what is the policy on the improvement? I'm all for the improvements. If the improvements go to a trust fund for the system, and not like Social Security where it just washes into the bank account and washes out. But do we have a policy on, is there a cap on your outside improvements? I mean, it seems like a pretty tough thing for 40% if you're using a fair amount of water. So that was my questions. I leave it to you guys to see what you think, but I think there needs to be, if there is no cap, there needs to be a cap on what the improvements are. I did have a water meter problem at the park here about a year or two ago. They called me from the city. This time they called me and I said, we're using a lot of water down there. You must have a leak. I said, well, I'm an old one. So I had the guy crawl clear underneath the motel for the water. The crawl space looking like this. And it was all dry. And so I said, the city, and they came right up and changed the meter. We had no problems. But in the case of the trees, the meter now is working fine. So the only thing I can think of is I had to freeze the notes because the city didn't do anything and I didn't do anything. So, and there's no evidence of that much water. The question also is why am I on that meter? Because it's a restriction when we have 2 fire hydrants up there. So, is there any questions?
Jim, can you comment on discrepancies on the capital improvement?
I believe all meter accounts is should say, and I'd have to check to be sure. It goes through a meter that capital improvement based on how many gallons it goes through there on math formula. So the more gallons you use over and above the 15,000, I believe, then phosphorus, I don't know, look at the chart. The meter was put on the trees up there because there's discrepancy in how much water was being used on the 381 trees or whatever.
Right. I can remember that. The capital improvement back there is based on gallons per minute.
Yeah, it goes through a meter. I believe, I haven't looked again, but all commercial businesses, if you go over the 15,000, and so much per gallon goes into that capital improvement fund, which goes into a restricted fund for use just for water improvements.
On the third page, due date for the one billing here, due date 4/15.
Are you looking at the tree thing?
On this property, yes. He has a previous balance of 1859, inside water 4150, and before that we had a inside water 22, and so the capital improvements goes from 10 to 1885, so that reflects just about right with the water meter. That's real close to the water meter, correct? I don't see a big difference. I just noticed that on when we started that right here.
So why did you put?
Well, what I'm doing is going from page like 3 to 4, 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot of capital improvements on this one right here.
What year?
Trees on Squaw Peak on fruit cover is 2013. This is the latest bill date 5/31. And on page 4 of that, inside water, I'm just looking at the discrepancies. Is that much water been going through that meter?
Yeah, that's what Tom's talking about on that
Yeah.
fourth page. See in the middle of the page at 1,721,000. That's the amount of gallons that went through that meter, which created the inside water of $1,301.
Wow.
And then the balances keep rolling forward. So then you look at the, I guess it would be the third page, you use 41,000 gallons. Second page, you use 10,000 gallons, and then 1,000 gallons. So it's all tied in with how many gallons going through the meter. And that's what Tom's referencing.
41,000.
And they read the meter sometime at the end of February. I've seen that thing be spinning off the wall. It created that big gallon.
Well, why did you put a meter on him in 2008?
There's a big discrepancy in how much water was being used on the hill up there. Again, I don't want to open up a whole can of worms. I'm not flooding the hill. The water came down. It wasn't the water. And so the city, to solve it, the city council voted just put a meter over there to see what's going up there. And history shows that there was actually, over the years since we put the meter in, for years and years and years, they used us 23 cents per 100 square foot on each tree, times 380 some trees, and it was like $300 all summer or something like that. They put the meter on, it comes up to be about $250 to anywhere to $350 a month for the water. That's why the meter was put on. And then they would.
At the time, the board, the present utility board and city council, we did go up and investigate, most of us did that. We did see water coming through the hillside in like August, September. And I think Tom was in agreement with this, said at that time, put the water meter on.
I did have a leak up there one time, yeah.
Pardon me?
I did have a leak up there one time, yeah.
There's a lot of water I know that was coming through the hillside. We did investigate it, that's why it was approved to put the meter on at that time.
I have a question. Tom, I mean, what's your, the comments that you made, what is your overall request of the board? Are you trying to look for a reduction in the cost here?
Well, yeah, first of all, I don't think that maybe 700,000 gallons is even realistic. First of all, the meter wasn't put in correctly. It's 29 inches, and that's the only thing I can think of that was wrong, because the meter now was working before, and now it's working now, and nobody's done anything. So, that's kind of a simple deduction. Then the second thing is looking at these 40% of, I think that's unrealistic. Not only for me, but for anybody else, particularly if that's hard. And then the third thing on Bath Lumber, it seems like there should be some relief. If we had known a month earlier, we wouldn't have had that kind of a bill, we would have gotten it done. And the fourth thing, if you look at that bill, the last bill there for Bath Lumber, we had the water shut off on the 10th of March. And the water usage for that month was higher than the previous month. And we only had, it was shut off to change on the 10th of March. So we only used it 9 days. And it was 266,000 gallons versus the previous month, I think it was 166,000. I don't know why, but it seems to me that was, for 9 days, it counted more than what we were using the previous month if there was a leak. We did, I picked that one, but I didn't take it on the hill. I think that's totally out of line.
I do have a couple comments, just want to disclose that to the public. Okay, when that was brought to Tom's attention, he did take corrective action, he did a bypass line for him until the line could be replaced. I mean, looking at both these bills, I think they're both a little excessive. Often the Water Capital Improvement Fund has been initiated, and those funds do go to improvement of the municipality. But I do think there's some justification in his complaint here. One good thing I did to compliment Tom is at least he paid the bill and come to the utility board instead of not paying the bill and have to fight it out with him. So I do appreciate that. You know, I don't believe the board has a policy as far as some of these, and maybe we need to look at them case by case. But it's hard for me to, you know, look down here at a $1,900 bill, okay, and, you know, the previous months, okay, were considerably less. Okay, I mean, here's what happens usually when you have a water leak. I mean, one or two things happen. Either one, the water shows up in the meter box, or it surfaces. In that lumber's application, the water showed up in the meter box. Okay, it never did surface outside of the meter box. So there's no indication that there was a leak, okay, other than what was in the meter box. Now, it's not uncommon for the water department to go through, check these meters, and you have surface water that goes down in these boxes. I would say probably, I would bet 30% of the meter boxes have water in it just from surface applications, rain, snow, and so forth. So when they finally did figure out, they did bring it to back numbers' attention, and they did take corrective action. You know, I personally believe that on some of these particular applications or situations that I think the board needs to be a little bit lenient, or the city does, in what they actually charge the individual. I mean, we never had the capital improvement fund before, so I'm sympathetic to that. And simply, I mean, before the individual or entity knows it's leaking, okay, I would like to see maybe a cap put on what they're billed. Maybe say the highest usage of that year, and no more than that. And if it's not corrected within the 30-day period that it was brought to their attention, then the actual usage be implemented. But I mean, I do personally believe these are a little bit out of line. I mean, if you don't see the water, don't surface it, you can't address it. And in residential applications, I mean, we have circumstances where the water may leak for 3 or 4 months and never surface. We don't even have meters on them. So I mean, I think there's some justification in some caps that we put on this. So, I mean, 1 million gallons worth of water up at the Squaw Peak application, that's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. I mean, that should have surfaced. That's a tank. You know, so I mean, I think there's some justification here. The other thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is that Tom is in the process of building a home up there, which is a residential home. Okay, and I know in the past, it sounds like we've had a commercial application there. But he has an 8-inch line going up to his property with a fire hydrant on it. And we have a 2-inch water meter servicing that property. I would hate to see the city be in a situation where there was a fire and they hooked the fire truck up to that and only have 2 inches of water. I think the city's a little bit liable there. But I think there should be, if he's went to the problem and put an 8-inch line in, which is the city's extension policy, we should be connected to that 8-inch line for fire protection. Now, if we want to put a meter beyond that point, then that's fine, but you need to have the volume of water for fire protection up there, and he doesn't have it. Those are my comments.
So could the meter, like Tom said, if it was frozen, could it work
You know,
I mean,
anything's possible with mechanical items. I mean, generally, if the meter would freeze, it would probably be inoperative, I would say.
So if the meter was frozen and was inoperative, you probably didn't get any water up there. If the meter just gave a false reading.
Well, it's very possible. I mean, if something freezes, I mean, you can move a dial, the indicator. I mean, you know, really to tell you the truth, I don't have a correct answer to that. Generally, when they freeze, you don't have water. No, but I'm not saying it couldn't have a factor on the meter. But if you have 1 million gallons that come off that hill up there, I think that would be impossible.
Jim, to the best of your memory, recollection, here about 5 years ago, did we not have a meter on Murray Springs? And Dean Day, we found that meter jumping. And we ended up replacing that meter. If my memory serves me right, it seems like we did have a meter that jumped, you know. Not every month, but it did jump. And we ended up replacing that meter.
And I can't recall if they were too wild or not.
Ron, was you here at that time?
I was here, but I don't recall anything.
Jump as in volume or jump as in flow rate?
At B5s, maybe
Because
even
the
7, 8
only-
years ago. But except the meter was coming out of right there by Tyson's, right there, that meter box there.
Yeah, because what I recall with that meter thing, they had trouble getting accurate flow
Yes.
readings out of it. You know, I don't recall the volume, but they were having some trouble with accurate flow readings.
Yeah, we had an employee checking that meter and the golf course meter every day, and she'd report those to me. And one of the first things they mentioned, it would jump around.
Yeah.
It was a large meter. But a little history on that, on the Squaw Peak thing, is the city would ask Tom if we could put a 2-inch meter in his pump house too, because we didn't want to disrupt the flow going up the hill, and he said, no, we went into this meter. So they put again, I haven't looked in the pipe, I got a loop around there for that 2-inch meter. It was only during the summer months, June through September or October, that would go through that meter. The fire department was advised if there would be a fire on the hill, fire department was to go over, turn that out of that 2-inch thing to get the flow up there. You'd have 2,000 gallons of water on the scene of the fire. That meter was not shut off last winter. You know, it was supposed to have been shut off in October, it wasn't done. They got reading the meter, and here you go. That Ron has got a meter ordered for that over there, Ron, is that correct?
I haven't ordered it yet until July 6th.
Let me clarify that then. There is an 8-inch service that goes up there.
Yeah, I don't know what size pipe it is, but there's a large pipe going there across from Cat House that way. And then there's a loop in that thing.
Okay, it was my understanding that the 8-inch main terminated and it was being serviced with a 2-inch line.
No, I think it goes all the way up the hill where Tom supplied
Was
us.
it 6 or 8 inch go up to them?
Isn't it 6 to 8?
There's a 6-inch loop down by the old iron mill, and Dean Day told me that, and there's a letter in 91, says that I had to connect to the 6-inch line and run an 8-inch all the way up. And I did, but I asked Dean at the time, I said, well, why am I putting an 8-inch line on a 6-inch? And he said, well, we're trying to standardize, and someday we hope to have you bring that line down the road and connect into 7th Street to help the water pressure there. So that was fine with me because it's just about the difference in the cost of 5, 6, and 8. The big cost is putting in the pipe. So I put the 8-inch with the two fire hydrants up there. And as Jim says, they tapped the 6-inch, which is the city's, ran it to my 8-inch around the valve that I had put in as they told me to. And there's a reducer, well, I guess it's an increaser from the 6 to the 8, right when I connected into the city's water. So it's a 2-inch line, or water line, that I've got basically filling an 8-inch pipe. And that's why some of my pumps, I had to work on my pumps. I didn't realize, because the city approved putting an 8-inch meter in there. That's why I'm sure I had pump problems. I repaired them 2 or 3 times. Because when my sucks that water up, there's air, and it causes a problem.
Tom, when that line goes up the hill, and then you're servicing your trees along the route there,
No, it goes up to the tank.
it goes up to a tank, and then everything from there that serves your trees comes out of it.
And I have to have the pumps on getting water, because the water I'm above the tanks.
Your tank is above our tanks.
So in other words, without those pumps on, I don't get water. That's why it's even more ridiculous that 1,700,000 gallons when the surface storage, the pumps were on. I mean, ground's frozen. Right now, the meter's working. So those are the 4 issues that I have.
I do have a comment. I've been racking my brain from when we created this water, the capital improvement fund, and as I recall, and I'd have to go back and double check this, but as I recall, we only made a difference between residential and commercial. I don't know that we made it, I don't believe we made a difference between accounts that were serviced by a meter versus accounts that were not serviced by a meter.
I just thought it was residential and commercial.
That's what I'm thinking as well. So for any residential deal, I think the fee for the water capital improvement was just $10.
Yeah, and there was, because we never talked about meters in residential, because I didn't really have anybody have a meter. Guess we have one now.
Yeah, I think that's just what's happened on the Squaw Peak thing, is the meter triggered the computer to do that reading, that increased there. So that's easily handled there.
Are you living up there now?
Pardon?
You living up there now?
No, I'm still working on it.
Gonna move in August.
Huh?
Move in August? We just don't know what August.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2012.
Tuesday.
So maybe we should go through these bills and then clarify again what we're going to do.
What your recommendations would be?
Which one you guys start with?
Well, let's go with Bath Lumber. So he had, on 3/15/203, he had inside water of $1,301.50 and $590.05 of capital improvement.
Same page right there. That's on the back.
That's
That's Squaw Peak.
Oh, well, let's not just swap these then.
Oh.
Okay, so what date are we looking at then?
Okay, on
Squaw Peak.
3/15/203.
Yeah, that's when the big meter reading came through.
That was a total of $1,891.55. Okay, so we agree the water capital improvement fund should be reduced to $10. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're on the one, right? That's right. I think, John, before we better research what was approved by the city council and the utility board. I don't think we can just go back.
No,
We could create-
they're right on that. The $10 for residential, I said, this is just,
Okay.
it's the only meter on residential area
Okay.
that I know of.
I sort of like John's idea we mentioned earlier on in the conversation was go back and instead of see what the average amount or the highest amount was on each account and work off that rather than try to figure out how many gallons they use.
Well, I mean,
If he's just throw a number out, if his average bill was $100 a month, then he had $1,000 a month, maybe we should just go back just for ease.
Well,
Charge you for $100.
That's why I gave you 2012 and 2013.
100%.
So you can see that I didn't use any water in 2012, really until June.
By the city council and
You
utility.
know, whether you want to, go back June to June, see what the summer months was on, how much was used. I was just trying to think something would be easier.
If we
less, trying to figure out what each month was.
That's for residential. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's.
Well, the biggest one
No, I
is,
know the percentage for commercial.
Okay. Council just said it was a percentage for commercial, and I'm pretty sure that it was $10 per resident. Okay.
But, you know, I just have a question, let me ask Ron on that 1,000,007 gallon, 1,721,000 gallons. Did you guys see a leak, Ron, or?
No, Carl said he didn't see a leak. He said he had talked to Tom, and Tom had mentioned
there was a little
something
puddle of
about.
water there in the road, but, that wasn't 10 gallons, you know.
Because, you know, I'm not blaming it, I'm just making a point here is, we forgot to turn the water off at Murray Springs, or the Murray pump house, and feed those trees there. It froze, it snowed. Until the snow went away, that all of a sudden our people, oh, look, we have a leak. So, I mean, that's a lot of water. Sooner or later it's gonna have to thaw, come down the hill, whatever. And, so all I'm saying is, to go back to an average, that's almost, I look at this here, is it right or wrong? I don't know. 1,721,000 gallons is a lot of water, but take off the